Last August, I was a part of the East Ohio delegation with Bishop Malone, and we traveled Zimbabwe and learned more about it. I was asked to go on this trip partly so I could be a part of the next generation of pastors involved in the critical mission work that's happening over in Zimbabwe. On our trip, we went to several locations. We flew in, let me show you. We flew into Harare after a very, very long plane ride. So we flew into Harare, and then by a little microbus, we traveled down to the city of Mutare. Mutare, for many of us, we may have heard of it before because it is the location of Africa University and where we spent a good deal of our time as a delegation. We then took a very long bus trip along this road, very long bus trip along this road to the city of Bulawayo, where we spent another several days, and I'll talk about our experiences there. And then we ended our trip going to Victoria Falls, which was an amazing experience in itself. Let's just say I look at Niagara Falls a little differently now after seeing those beautiful falls over in Zimbabwe. As I share with you, though, my experience today, it is my hope that we can all gain together today a sense of perspective of the world around us. My life was forever changed on this trip, and there's a part of Africa that now lives in me, and I can't wait to make a return trip and be a part of our ongoing efforts at the church I serve at Lakewood United Church, as well as our conference efforts in Zimbabwe. This morning, though, I want to share with you a scripture that speaks to me and that spoke with me during my trip. Philippians 4, verses 4-7. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice in the Lord always. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So today I kind of ask us, and before my trip, and I guess even recently, have you ever been in a moment in which you were truly struggling to find joy? I think for many of us, we can admit that there are times in our lives that we struggle to find joy. The one thing that I learned during my time in Zimbabwe was that grace and love and joy abound so amazingly in large scales. As I learned about the history of the people of Zimbabwe, one of which is war and famine, and disease and poverty, I learned about all of this, and so when I went there, I wasn't sure what to expect. I was expecting, I guess, things a lot different than what they appeared. Every single corner I turned during that journey, I witnessed joy. Joy in abundance. Part of my call to ministry, I was called to ministry when I was a teenager. I was in high school, and I loved animals. I wanted to be a zookeeper. I wanted to change the world. I wanted to change the way animals are treated. I wanted to preserve every animal. And then I felt this deeper sense of calling that I wanted to be a part of something to help people have faith and have a relationship with God. So in college, I was an environmental science major, still thinking maybe that I could be like a zoology and do things to help change the environment and the world around us, as well as struggling with this call to ministry. And I'd always dreamed of one day serving God in Africa through helping the people understand a relationship with God, as well as, let's just say, helping preserve the beautiful creation that God has given to us. And so part of my journey, I was looking at that Philippians passage, and I was seeing the joy around me, but I was coming back to my initial call. There had been a few years of just real struggle in ministry and real just struggle of the balance of life. I'm a mom of three daughters, beautiful daughters. I have an amazing husband. But there was a sense of me that was really, really struggling with my call and what God had for me. I knew that there was something bigger I was supposed to still be doing. And so I came back to my scripture passage that was part of my call story. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. And then being in Africa, it was a dream come true. I never imagined. You have these dreams, you have these things that you think God is going to direct you towards. And I'm still in disbelief that I actually spent 10 days over in Africa, seeing the depth of God's creation and seeing the depth of God's love so magnified in those people. But I also saw this passage and the people I encountered. I saw the rejoicing always in the Lord, and I saw people so focused on serving God and figuring out the plans that God had for them. Now I want to share with you some of the specific things that I experienced when I was there. Our first time there, we were at Africa University, and this is the delegation of us that went. I was by far the youngest female on the trip and the youngest person on our trip, but the bonds and the friendships that were formed. At Africa University, I encountered some students who, if I look at that Jeremiah passage in the Philippians, they were full of joy and full of discovering what God had for them. So these are some of the students. This is the Faculty of Theology, so the School of Theology, Reverend Bruce Hitchcock and I standing outside of it. And these are some of the dorms that they live in, and one of them is the dorm that the East Ohio Conference dedicated to Africa University. These are some of the student government students, and these are some of the scholarship recipients actually from the East Ohio Conference. My time with the students of Africa University was very, very impactful. I really want to continue to work on our conference's relationship with Africa University, because I look at the lives touched and the stories of these young adults coming from all over the continent of Africa and the struggles that they go through just to make education a possibility. We take so much for granted here, and they just want to learn and learn and learn, and they don't struggle about it. They know that the only way out of their system is to be educated and to step foot on that campus. And quite honestly, I felt like I was back at Adrian College, the college that I attended, because it was like another world. You stepped onto the campus of Africa University, and you no longer thought that you were in a third world country. What the United Methodist Church is doing in Zimbabwe and across the continent of Africa through Africa University is changing lives so deeply. But right across the street from Africa University is where probably my most memorable experience happened. And it just occurred in a 3-hour time span as we toured Old Mutare Mission. So you have the campus of Africa University, and across the way, the road, walking distance, is a missionary. And at this missionary, we spent time touring the missionary with the clinic and the children's home. It was, we landed in Old Mutare, we traveled by bus, we saw from a distance a third world country. And for the first time in my life, I really felt like a minority. But then once we got on the campus of Africa University, I forgot that I was in a third world country. But the minute we stepped foot onto Old Mutare Mission, it was a reality check for me. It was during this visit that I truly saw the realities of this third world country. I am still, in many ways, at a loss for words of my experience there. While visiting the clinic, I just witnessed people hanging around the clinic, waiting for medical care. Those sterile walls of the Cleveland Clinic that so many of us experience, This is their waiting room, much different than the waiting rooms that we experience. This is the hospital facility. And a sign, I mean, it's prevalent, the HIV epidemic, even though it's come to a halt, is still alive and well, and the education that has to go around. While we were there, we learned the needs of the clinic, and there's a part of me that is looking, and I've actually personally reached out to some of my doctors and my children's doctors, and it is my hope in the near future to take a medical team back, hopefully next year, to Old Mutare Mission, where we can spend some time learning more about the needs there and figuring out a way how we can partner with that mission to bring, let's just say, some basic things that they are needed. While we were there, we witnessed, in this photo here, you will see a nurse in a gurney with a patient on it. The doctor was in the hallway talking to us, and as the doctor was in the hallway talking to us, I heard the cry of a baby. And not even 2 minutes later, this woman came past us in the gurney, just completely passed out, and with the nurses beside her, and she just had a C-section with, I think, only local anesthesia. And I've had 3 children, and I know the conditions in which my children were brought into this world, and as a mother, I wept for what this mother was going through, but I was also praying for that child because infant mortality is so high in that country still. And I was just praying that that child was healthy and that that mother was healthy. Here, we're a bunch of visitors standing in this hallway, and the mother is wheeled right past us after having given birth in so much pain. And I was at a loss for words that day. I think we're privileged here in America. And as you see in this photo, you see pregnant women who come from miles and miles around, and they just wait near the hospital towards their end of their pregnancy so that they are there when they go into labor so that they can deliver a healthy baby and so that they too can survive. This is once again inside the hospital. They use every amount of money that they receive to take care of the patient. So things like this may happen because honestly to them, if they have $10,000 given to them as a gift, they're gonna put it first and foremost into the hands of the healthcare, of making sure that they can save lives and treat people. And so the building does need a lot of love and attention, but they're trying to be the best stewards of the money that God has given them to make a difference in the lives of the people in their community. We then carried on after that clinic experience to Fairfield Children's Home at Old Mutare Mission. And it was from this experience that I look at children differently this day. I look at my own children differently. I was so blessed. Upon arriving, I took with us gifts from the children of our church at Lakewood United Methodist Church. And I got to give these gifts out. There are 80 children who reside in 8 different homes with a house mother. I mean, truly, each house with the house mother is a family. There's a mother who watches over them and cares for them. I was also blessed at this time to present a nice sum of money that the children of Lakewood United Methodist Church earned from lemonade stands and all sorts of things over our Vacation Bible School. So I was able to take money to make a difference. And I delivered handmade cards, and it was an experience. I suddenly became like a rock star, no joke. I had these cards, and in these cards they were covered in glitter, and they were just beautiful little cards. And in the moment, I handed out all these cards, and I did the best, and there was this beautiful girl named Joy Lynn that said, "Can I please have a pink card. So I reached into my bag of glitter cards and I pulled out a pink card. To my amazement, it was a pink card for my own daughter, Liliana. The next touching moment came towards the end of our visit when a little girl approached me and asked me to read her card to her. I opened the card and I once again saw a familiar name of one of the children of our church who I'm very close with. The card read, "I give hope to you. God loves you." It was covered in lots of glitter and decorated with hearts, and the little girl's name was Rejoice. Rejoice will always be a part of my life if I ever see her again or not. The moment I handed her that card and she shared with me her name, it was the perfect card for a perfect girl with the perfect name. She tucked that card deep into her pocket and grabbed my hand so tight. And that's where I come back to this image here. She grabbed my hand so tight that she did not want to let go. What I had brought to her was a simple card, but she grabbed my hand so tight that her own hand started to become white. And she asked me if I wanted to play with her. So we headed to the play area, and I got a little dizzy even from spinning. They had a metal merry-go-round thing. I don't even do these with my kids at home, but how could I deny these children from playing with them? Most of the other participants on our trip were just standing around interacting with the kids, but I'm like, I am going to play with these children. From now on, the word rejoice will hold a whole different meaning in my life. The joy that I saw on these children with the little they had. I mean, this was their playground. And as I share with you, this was it's beautiful, lush gardens that the children take care of. But they didn't have much at all. Their homes, very, very basic things, not much at all. No, maybe they could get one channel on the TV, and they do hang up any photo, so anybody who ever visits them, your photo will forever be hung up in their house. And brand new packaged toys hang on the walls. So if you ever go to visit, don't take brand new toys, take used toys. They're afraid, they don't want to play with the brand new toys because they are so valuable, mean so much to them. This room here, 5 children sleep in this room. 5 boys sleep in this room. And every day, they put all their beds up and they bring them out at night. And so they kind of stack them up like this, and they clean their bedrooms every day. This is a lesson for my children, I'm telling you. I keep trying to tell them and show them the pictures of the homes in Africa and how clean they are. And this is the bathroom of one of the homes. And this is one of the mothers that I became very close with. And these are some of the children. The next day, we had an opportunity to either go and sit in on some classes at Africa University, and I was like, been there, done that. And I'm like, can I just go back to the orphanage? I just want to go play with the children. So I went back to the orphanage, and there's a sense in me that God was just pulling me back. I needed to understand more about these children, what family means to them. And so I went back, and they were so excited to see me. They wanted me to come and just play with them, but there was something we had to do first. Because I went there in the morning, it was chore time and homework time. They were on break from school, but on break from school, they had packets of homework, and this house mother just said to me, can you please help them with their homework? Because it was something that she personally struggled with, and I was like, sure. So they pulled out some math homework, and you'll see on this picture here, they had one sheet, and they all each had to write from that one sheet. There was like a bunch of second grade children. And they had to handwrite and rewrite all the problems. And it dawned on me, my kids, they're given, the amount of time it took these children to do 20 math problems, my kids probably could have done in a lot less time because of the resources they had. They were using pens, so if you make a mistake, you have to redo it all. And they had to rewrite every problem out because there was only one master copy that needed to be given back to the school. And so I sat and did math homework for like an hour with these children. And then I developed a relationship with this girl named Catherine. And I asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up. And she told me she wanted to be a pastor like me. She had a dream. And she wanted to follow that dream that God had for her. All of these children, when we were talking about what they wanted to do and be, they had big dreams. This one wanted to be a lawyer. I was so proud of that moment that they were not settling for what was to come. They were grateful for the woman who was taking care of them and what could come. I want to go back. I want to see those children. I sent some care packages at Christmas time. They will forever change my perspective and where I find joy in this world. As our trip continued, we then, as I said, we left Africa University and Old Mutare Mission, and we traveled on a very long, hot bus ride, 7-hour bus ride across the country of Zimbabwe, which was beautiful in itself to see the country. And we ended up in Bulawayo. And at Bulawayo, I was able to stay with a family and connect with Bethel United Methodist Church, and we spent some time at Msazini School. This is a teacher, Rosemary, and this is her classroom at Msazini School. And this is the children. They were on holiday, they were on break, but because of how much East Ohio Conference does for them, they decided to come in as a school choir and sing for us on their day off. And so we toured the school, we met with the children. I once again was able and privileged to present a check to the school from the Vacation Bible School of Lakewood United Methodist Church to continue the efforts of these children continuing to thrive and survive. The next day we went and visited Precious Life Foundation. And some of the books and some of the materials I spent time researching before my trip was a lot around orphans and children and the treatment of women in Zimbabwe. And it's sad reality that there were so many children, especially in the height of the AIDS epidemic, so many children were just left abandoned in fields and left abandoned. And I learned more during my trip there. It's because if you are a woman and you are pregnant and you are not married, you're outcasted even from your own family. And so Precious Life Foundation was started and created as a way that young women who are pregnant and disowned from their families can come and live and learn together. And so this foundation it's a farm, and it's a beautiful thing. There's these women living on this farm, and they learn how to farm. They learn how to manage chicks, and basically the farm is self-sustaining, so the money that comes out from the farm provides the foundation. And it was a beautiful, beautiful story. These are some of the women who have been a part of it and maybe now have beautiful success stories of moving on. And this is one of the children who's currently there. And up here is a picture of a mother. They take 12-hour shifts in the chicken house. When I arrived, that mother was sitting up there nursing her baby. I couldn't imagine my baby just being a couple months old and sitting in for 12 hours with my infant baby watching the baby chicks, because this is their livelihood, the chickens. And so they have to make sure that they stay safe, they stay at the right warm temperature. And so the mothers take turns. There's 2 mothers every 12 hours, and they shift, and they basically live in the chicken house taking care of them. And this is a beautiful story of many of the women here. There's some deep and personal stories. This little girl here in the red and white raincoat Something about her caught my eye when I first got there, and maybe it's because she looked to be of the same age as my children. And she was 8 years old. And she is only alive today because of Precious Life Foundation. Her mother was raped by her father, and the family pretty much disowned her, and she was trying to press charges against her family, and pretty much the family disowned her. But she still wanted to give birth to this child, and so she became familiar with Precious Life Foundation. And now this girl, there's a few struggles with her health, obviously, for genetic reasons, up until she was about 5 years old, but now she has a perfectly clean bill of health. And the mother now has since remarried, manages her own farm, and has 2 twin children, and is a success story. And we heard her powerful testimony, and it was just an amazing experience watching these women farm and raise their children and go on to be able to survive on their own. Oh, well, after that experience, emotionally and spiritually, I think for me, I was finding joy in everything as that trip continued. But I got to experience one of my dreams. And it was a great way, after spending all this time in mission and ministry and worship and engaging with people, we ended our trip at Victoria Falls. And this is a shot of the waterfalls that I was able to take from a helicopter ride that I went on. And there's a rainbow over the falls, and in that moment, when I was experiencing that, I had a big, huge sense of peace and joy for my experience that I just went through. Here's me at Victoria Falls, getting sprayed by some of the mist. And we also went on a Zambezi riverboat cruise the last day. It's a great way to end a trip. I highly recommend it. It just kind of brings all of God's creation together to witness this, but to actually witness elephants out in their wild at a watering hole, not at a zoo, was just amazing. And so we got to encounter that experience. And so you'll see, and then this was a baby rhino we encountered, and warthogs everywhere. And I mean, just look at that sunset. My experiences in Zimbabwe will be with me forever, and I invite you, if you would like to be a part of future teams from East Ohio Conference going, or just learning more about this opportunity and the impact that churches like Medina, Lakewood can have on this place, please let me know. Reach out to me, reach out to your pastor. I'd be more than happy to share with you my experiences and ways that you can be involved. Thank you.